Finally, the truth is beginning to dawn on the new world as it is becoming clear that Europeans face a much steeper uphill battle than particularly their American right-wing counterparts. This is appropriate, of course, considering America's position as leader of the free world. And Europeans are more than happy for America to continue to carry this gauntlet, something the Obama administration consciously failed to do, which undoubtedly has led to this mess in the first place. Western logic would dictate that in a time of political stress, appeasement will de-escalate the situation. But if recent evidence is anything to go by, there are chinks within this argument. For example, the election of Barack Obama, for mostly, let's face it, being black, should, by reason, de-escalate racial tensions in America. Instead, we see the worst escalation in racial tensions since the civil rights movement. Meanwhile, in the UK, the election of a Muslim mayor of London has seen an escalation of Islamic terrorism. Of course, I'm not suggesting that these politicians in question have direct links to extremist organisations. I am, however, stating they have things in common. For example, I believe both of these politicians view the US and UK as apartheid states that they seek to overthrow. The only difference between them and the militia is the modus operandi, but ultimately, by default, of course, both complement each other. This leaves the right pondering the obvious question: is the pen mightier than the sword? Or rather, does the sword complement the pen? What proportion of the left's inability to criticise communism and Islam is motivated by fear of reprisal, as opposed to political philosophy? If this is indeed the case, which, let's face it, is likely, then where's the right's dog in this fight? Mercedes-Benz was producing cars for Imperial Germany 40 years before it diversified into building tanks and aero engines for the Nationalist Socialist Party, or Nazis. Now it produces products for the internationalist socialist consumer, neo-communists. On the inside of the recent G20 summit, we had Angela Merkel representing corporations like Mercedes-Benz. On the outside, we had Antifa. Although there is something of an internal struggle, an ideological struggle between all three, this is set aside when either or all is confronted with their single greatest nemesis, nationalism. And here we find the trinity of tyranny: the political motivation, the industrial base, and the thugs to quell any dissenting opinion. I can't help but think the Merkel sphere has swapped white supremacy for intellectual supremacy, the net result being very much the same. If Donald Trump is indeed Hitler, then Merkel, by extension, is Stalin. Moreover, marching a person into a death camp for their ethnicity is no less unhonourable than for their political beliefs. The German establishment censor the media and internet, while Antifa kick dissidents off their soapboxes at ground zero. The Anglosphere has to understand, Germany doesn't have a strong tradition of free expression. It has a tradition of conformity. Look at the Partnership for Prosperity, a German phenomenon where industrial shop stewards and the political establishment thrash out a deal every pre-election cycle. This may, for the most part, explain Germany's industrial superiority. However, it has potentially dire consequences on a democratic and civic level. This is not a new phenomenon. It is Germanic culture. For example, Germany did not lose the last two world wars because it made inferior weapons or had inferior tactics. It lost because it was unable to win the hearts and minds of the countries it occupied. The Allies, led by the Anglosphere, were guilty of almost the exact opposite. This rigid belief system is responsible for the failing attempt at Germanizing Greece and Italy recently, simply because they neither take their own culture nor anyone else's into account. To be fair, the European continent's inevitable descent into chaos has more to do with those countries' incompetence than Germany's overcompetence. However, Germany's push for further integration has meant it has little to gain by their failure and everything to lose. I have no doubt that Germany's initial intentions were honourable. However, by shutting down dissenting opinions and passively aligning itself with intellectual thugs, it is steering this discourse to its inevitable conclusion. I remind people, during the Nuremberg hearing, people were not tried morally for why they took decisions, they were tried for the consequences of those decisions.